Welcome to Jazz Zone Together, our new online jazz community where we will provide jazz education resources, interviews with jazz educators, artists, and celebrities, along with valuable tips and repertoire suggestions. Today, we're extremely pleased to be joined by noted music educator and exceptional trumpet player, Terell Stafford. Terell currently serves as Director of Jazz Studies and Chair of Instrumental Studies at the Boyer College of Music at Temple University in Philadelphia. He is also a Grammy Award-winning trumpeter and band leader. Now, I'll turn the mic over to Dick Dunscomb to conduct our interview with Terell. Dick, it's all yours.
Thank you, Bob. This is going to be such a pleasure today. One of my favorite all-time trumpet players and an outstanding jazz educator, Terell Stafford. Welcome, Terell.
Thank you so much, Dick. Great to be here.
Thank you. And we'll just get right into it.
Okay.
We'd like to open the interviews by determining how you began in music and what led your pursuit of music and music education as your career path.
Well, I began in music in Chicago. I'm originally from Florida, and we moved to Chicago. And I've always had the dream to play the trumpet. It's always been my favorite. But when I was in Chicago, I had to start playing a stringed instrument first. So I started with viola, and I was probably the worst violist in the state of Illinois. My teacher reminded me of that, and we didn't get along so well. But then when I was 13, I started the trumpet, and I've loved it ever since. And my dad worked for the railroad. So a few years after I started in Illinois, we moved to the East Coast, and I continued my studies. My dreams and ambition were to play classical music, not really to play jazz. I didn't play jazz as a young person. So I got 2 degrees in classical trumpet. And then in the middle of my first year, or near the end of my first year, I met my hero, Mr. Bud Herseth, who was principal of Chicago Symphony for almost over 50 years. I met him in New York. And I told him I wanted to be just like him. And he said, you should aim higher, make sure you can do everything on the trumpet. So he said, be able to do classical, be able to do jazz, do it all. And so at that point, I started to learn some jazz. And so my second year of grad school, I started to get jazz gigs, and, one thing led to another, and I started to perform. And then after performing, starting a performance career in jazz, I auditioned for the Cosby Show, and I was doing the music for that. And on that show, I met Shirley Scott, the great organist, and there was an opening at her school. And the opening was to teach a survey of music course. And she knew I just finished my master's degree in classical trumpet. So I started to teach this survey of music course at Cheyney University in Cheyney, Pennsylvania. And 4 years after teaching there, I got my Temple University position. And I've been here 26 years.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, while you were studying at the University of Maryland, it appears that you had a chance meeting with someone that changed your career path, Wynton Marsalis.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us how that occurred and where that led you.
So, sure. So while I was at University of Maryland, my embouchure wasn't in the center, and my teacher was really adamant about me making sure that it was. So, and so I really had a hard time moving it. So after undergrad, I took a break from the trumpet, and I started to tutor in trigonometry, and I got a minor in computer science, and I worked at a insurance company in their IT department. And during that time, my friends were like, "Oh, you can't do that, man. You got to play the trumpet again." So they took me to hear the Eastman Wind Ensemble, and Wynton was playing, all the cornet trumpet literature. And I was, after the concert, I was inspired by what he played, but I was really inspired as well by what the principal trumpet played. Her name was Yvonne Tall, and I really wanted to get backstage and say, wow, I was so inspired. But I couldn't find Yvonne, but I did see a big line for Wynton, and I stood in the line, and I met him, and he said, do you play trumpet? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, what does yeah mean? And I said, well, haven't played in a few months, but, and I told him my embouchure, and he goes, here, look, I'm going to give you the number to my teacher, and you go get a lesson. The lesson's on me. and let me know how it goes. If he says you should quit, then you should. But if he says you should play, you should do that. So I got a lesson. And after the lesson, his name was Professor William Fielder, who I got the lesson from. After the lesson, he says, I want you to play. I want you to start practicing the trumpet again, since you took about 3 or 4 months off. And I want you to audition for grad school. And I did that. So, yeah.
Wow. So, and eventually Wynton gave you an opportunity to perform with Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra.
He did, so it was really interesting because, I speak to students all the time about, making sure you learn the history of your instrument. And the reason why I feel so passionately about it, because I was not prepared, And I remember one night I was playing a club in New York. It's called Bradley's Late Night Club. And I was sitting in with the pianist Kenny Barron. And after I finished the set, Stanley Crouch comes up to me and he goes, hey kid, come here. And I walk over to him. He goes, have you transcribed Louis Armstrong? I said, no. He goes, how about Bubba Miley? I said, nope. Cootie Williams, named all these trumpet players that I hadn't transcribed. And I said, nope. He goes, you should get on it. You should learn the history of your instrument. So I go home. I was, my feelings were hurt because I was embarrassed, And John Faddis calls and he says, hey, Wynton wants me to put together a trumpet section for the Lincoln Center Band. Are you available? And I said, sure. So we get to this rehearsal and we start to play. I never forget, we were starting to play Black and Tan Fantasy. And it starts with a pixie plunger and growling. And I'd never done much of that. So after I played a few bars, went and stopped the band. He goes, hey, man, what are you doing? And I said, I'm playing the pixie. And he goes, no, you're not. You need to check out Bubba Miley and you need to check out Cootie Williams. And so he named a few people, the same people that Stanley Crouch named, that I needed to check out. And so after that lesson was learned. Stanley Crouch said I should have checked him out. 2 days later, Wynton says I should have checked him out. So that was my experience with the Lincoln Center Band. And I'd done a few more concerts with them and a recording. But you learn lessons. Tough love is beautiful love.
That's a great story to share.
Yeah.
I think that you took it well, and obviously you have soared from that point forward.
Well, thank you.
Now, in 2013, I believe it was, you were instrumental in the creation of the Jazz Orchestra of Philadelphia, where you currently serve as managing and artistic director. Tell us about that group and some of the band's highlights.
Sure. So that group came about, the mayor of Philadelphia wanted to do a jazz orchestra. He's like, New York has one, Chicago has one. And so he asked me if I would lead it. And my first response to him was like, I need to think about it. So I called Wynton and Wynton says, I'm going to send you the first 3 chapters of the book that I'm writing. It's out now, but then it was still manuscript. And he goes, I want you to read it. And I want you to use that timeline in putting together this group in Philadelphia. And first of all, I said, well, I'm not sure if I should do it. He goes, of course you should do it. Of course you should do it. So I'll send you this manuscript. You read it over, give me a call, and let's talk about it. And so I read it over. I called him, asked him a bunch of questions. And so I started the group. And it was great. We did some local concerts. And then I think the highlight for me was the gala event that we did to get the group started and to raise money. Because, musicians always say, hey, if you ever need anything, let me know. Hey, if you ever need anything, let me know. And, I never take them up on it. But this particular time, when I was doing the gala event, I knew I needed to raise money for the orchestra to get started and survive. So Wynton came down. He came down and played, and Randy Brecker and Kenny Barron and Jimmy Heath. And I mean, it's just like an all-star cast. Bill Cosby was the MC for it. And it was just a packed room. It was a beautiful event. And so from that point on, we've done some really special concerts. We did of course, concerts with Jimmy Heath and Benny Golson and John Faddis and Randy Brecker. We've done concerts with Pat Martino. The list goes on and on and on of people that we've had. And I think the highlights for me are when we usually rehearse. We rehearse here at Temple University where I teach. And I always invite my students to come out in here, and the room is always packed with students. And the highlight is when the band takes a break the students in the band get together and they talk, and they share the parts and they share stories, and to me that's how we pass it along. So that's always my highlight, to provide an opportunity for my students to be in the middle of creation, in the middle of improvisation, in the middle of art making. And so that's important. But it's also great when they get to hang out with people like Joey DeFrancesco, who's one of our guests, and people like that, and get to meet and mingle with them. So very special that way.
Yes. Terell, we're going to talk about your program, your wonderful program at Temple in a minute. But before we do, let's talk about your performing career.
Mm-hmm.
It's had you playing with many, many, many leading artists. Can you relay some of the most significant of those experiences?
Sure. Well, I say the person that actually gave me my first opportunity was Bobby Watson. I was playing a jam session at a club in DC, and I was actually studying for my comprehensive exams for graduate school. I was about to graduate, and so have note cards in my hand, and people are playing tunes, and then all of a sudden, some guy gets up on alto that I'd never heard the alto played like this, and I put my note cards down and I listened to this guy. I was like, wow. And then I played a little bit after him, and after I played, he said to me, he goes, "Hey, what's your name?" And I told him, he goes, "I really like your sound. I could hear our sounds coming together." He goes, "Tomorrow night I'm playing with this pianist, McCoy Tyner, at a club, Blues Alley. I want you to come and check it out and meet McCoy." So I did. I met McCoy, and I didn't know what to say to McCoy Tyner, so I just said, maybe one day we can play together. And he was like, yeah, 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 yeah. So after that, I went up to New York and I auditioned for Bobby, played some of his music, and I began to tour with him, which was incredible. And through meeting Bobby and meeting McCoy, McCoy called me, and I got to perform with McCoy Tyner. And I met Jimmy Heath through John Faddis doing a Dizzy alumni band. And so I started to work with Jimmy Heath, and I met Benny Golson through Jimmy Heath, and I started to work with Benny Golson. So it's just like, you meet someone, you start to work with them, they introduce you to someone else. And, next thing I know, I'm with Cedar Walton, and I'm playing with all these different groups, and it was incredible. And then I met John Clayton, started to teach in Vail, Colorado, and through John, I met Dinah Krall. So I played on a big band record with Dinah Krall, and it kind of snowballs. My students always ask, what can I do to prepare for my performing career? And I'm like, practice as much as you can. That's the preparation. There's no networking that's gonna keep you on the scene. It's just hard work that's going to keep you on the scene. Networking will give you an opportunity, but if you don't follow through, then that's the only opportunity you get. So, spend some time on the instrument.
Well, like you've referred to your students, there's a lot of students and professional musicians that are looking in on this interview. And many of them aspire to a career similar to yours. And you've made many recordings and more to come. Can you give us an idea of what that is like? Because that's an important segment of your career, I know.
Yeah, again, with Bobby Watson, I go back to Bobby Watson because Bobby Watson played with Art Blakey, and a lot of the lessons he learned with Art Blakey, he passed on to myself. And I remember one really significant evening where he asked me to put together a set list. And so I put together a set list of the music that we had been playing in the band Horizon, but it was all the songs that I liked, to play on, not all the songs that would fit into a set. So we played this set, and they let me kind of fail, and after the set was over, it was kind of a flop. And Bobby goes, "What'd you learn?" I said, "Well, I learned that your set needs to be diversified." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "When you do an album, your album needs to be diversified as well. The programming should be some things that may please you, but it has to please the listener." So my very first record I did, Time to Let Go, back in, I think, 1996 or something like that, maybe earlier. I remember when I was programming for that, and after I'd come up with the songs, Bobby said, always run the songs by someone who's not a jazz musician. So my mom played trumpet, but she's not a jazz musician. So I showed her the set list, and she goes, "Yeah, I know this song. I know this song. I know this song. I don't know this song, but I know the other one. So I think this is good." And that began, that's the first part of really thinking about formulating a CD, having a combination of things that you may want, some originals and things like that. But you always have to include something that's going to invite people to hear the recording. So that was a really powerful lesson that Bobby taught me. And from then on, I think it's really important programming a CD, planning how you're going to release it, planning a tour. Of my recording process prior to COVID was that each year I play a week at the Village Vanguard. So when I want to record a new CD, we play the music for that week at the club. And then the Monday following, we record. Well, COVID struck. And so now my next date at the Vanguard is until 2024. But we just recorded a CD. I think it was maybe in August. And I just mixed it in December, and it'll be out this April. And we'll do a record release at a club in New York called Smoke. And then 2024, we'll do some of that material at the Village Vanguard when my quintet is there.
That sounds fabulous. I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah.
Let's delve a little bit deeper into the recording situation.
Sure.
What do we find when we get in there? This is speaking from an inexperienced trumpet player's viewpoint. Mm-hmm. What does he walk into?
Well, first of all, I think an important part of recording, even before you walking in, is putting together your band, because the band that I have, I've been playing with most of the guys for a very long time, some over 30 years. And so in a recording situation, I think it's the most vulnerable situation you can be in, because you're actually documenting something for life, performance situation. Well, now you perform and everybody's recording it on a device anyway, but when you record, you walk into the studio, and I'm very particular about the mic that I like to use. And so that's one suggestion I would give young folks, do some research on microphones, and find a microphone that you feel reflects your sound, because your sound needs to be consistent on as many records as you can do. So at least on your own, find a microphone that's going to reflect your sound. And then decide on how you want to set up in the studio. Do you want everyone to be in the same room? Do you want to have flexibility to come back and to fix some things if you want? So making that decision is really important. Most times that I record, I try to either be in the same room or behind baffles, so that the recording comes out really clean. And then, pacing yourself for that day. As a trumpet player, it's easy to spend an 8-hour day recording. Prior to the recording, I'm not sure how many trumpet players just sit and practice 8 hours. So learning in an 8-hour session how to pace yourself, to do a demanding piece, and then after the demanding beat, maybe do 2 that aren't so demanding, and then take a lunch break and come back and do another demanding piece. So pacing the demanding pieces so that you can have the endurance to make it through. And you don't want to get to the end of your record date and you have zero chops and to make it through. So pacing is really important. And then I'm a routine oriented person, so I come up with a plan of how I'm going to record. I know how many choruses we should shake on a tune, what the order of soloists are, so that you don't waste time. Time is money. So coming up with a plan so that you have a script when you walk in the studio of what's going to happen. And then having a good relationship and rapport with the engineer or the producer, and having someone that can say, okay, you did 2 takes, let's move on, so that you don't waste time doing 6 takes on one thing. Do a couple takes, move on. If you need to come back, you do. And then after that's all said and done, distancing yourself from it and then coming back and mixing it with a set of clean ears is really healthy. And then you master the record, and ta-da, there you go.
Such great advice, man. Okay. That's beautiful. Okay, Temple.
Yes.
This is an ultimate program that you've developed here, and it had a significant history, but it's really blossomed under your leadership. Tell us about the program and where you see it going.
I'm really, I'm proud of a lot of things in my life. The thing I'm probably most proud of is, the creation of my 6-year-old daughter. But outside of that, I'm really proud of Temple. When I came here in 1996, there were 2 combos. and there was half a big band. And the big band was so small that and no one could improvise, so I had to play all the improvised solos as the teacher. And so as the years have gone by, I started to build a program, but I was just, a faculty member. And then one day we had a new dean, and he came to me and he goes, "Hey, I want you to submit to me your vision of the program." So I submitted my vision, and I said, my vision of the program is to be surrounded faculty members that are my favorite musicians and favorite educators. And then in addition to that, providing a series where I can invite guest artists in to do master classes, to do residencies, and to do workshops. And I was granted that opportunity. And Dick, I can't tell you how it changed the landscape. When I became director of jazz studies, we did a festival here on campus. The festival had 3 or 4 bands. Next week we have our festival, and now our festival has 21 bands. We partnered with Lincoln Center, and so we make it an Ellington Regional Festival. Everybody has to do something from the Lincoln Center Library, and we have 21 bands coming to campus. And so they perform. We do a clinic with them, and so that's really blossomed and that's been helping on recruitment. So we went from having 2 combos and half a big band, and now we have 25 combos and we have 6 big bands. And I'm really proud. We have a great combo program. Our graduate program has been in existence for about 8 years. And my big band has gone to this Jack Rutten competition. And the first year we came in first place, and the second year we came in second place. And this year we won every award, every section, every soloist award, and we came in second place this year. So I'm proud of my students. We're going to be tomorrow. We have a rehearsal. We put together a group called the Studio Orchestra, and every 2 or 3 years, this group comes together, and myself and my colleague Dick Oates, Billy Childs, the great composer and arranger. Billy Childs wrote a piece for our studio orchestra, which is the orchestra and the jazz band together for Dick and I to play. And then we have a faculty sextet, and Bill Cunliffe commissioned a piece for the orchestra and the big band to play together with our faculty sextet. And we're going to premiere it in Philadelphia on the 31st of March, and we're going to premiere it at Rose Hall in New York on April 16th, which is really, really exciting. So yeah, that's where the program, and when I took over the classical program about 10 years ago, my vision for that was to do more collaborative works so that the jazz people could be around the classical folks and vice versa, and there could be a true community. And tomorrow at our read-through for these pieces, it just warms my heart to see, the jazz and classical kids there together and hanging out, and we'll go to New York together and we'll have dinner together. And it's just a great energy to bring about the 2 genres and realize that we're all playing the same notes, 12 notes. Yeah.
Well, congratulations, Terell.
Thank
You've done a fantastic job.
Thank you.
One that all of us look up to, as a matter of fact.
No, thank you.
Now, I know that your band has appeared at Midwest Clinic also.
Twice, yeah.
And we were really proud to have you there. What is the importance for a jazz educator to attend meetings like that?
Well, when I came, the first time I came is when I met you, and you were my mentor for my first appearance. And that was really powerful because you were just so welcoming, and you were so kind, and you really looked out. I was, new to the program. It was my first time at Midwest, and I couldn't have had a better mentor than yourself. And I remember the day of the performance, I'm not sure if you remember this, but one of my students, as we were walking on the stage, had a seizure. And so he has this seizure. I called 911. The paramedics came, and then we got on stage, and something wasn't right with the drum set. And while I was dealing with the student that had the seizure, you went and took care of and made sure that everything was fine on the stage. And ironically, the guy who was there to help us with equipment played bass as well. So the bass player that had a seizure, we had, my work study student who played bass and came to all the rehearsals. So he kind of sight read the book, and John Faddis was our guest. And, it was special. It was special to me. to be embraced and to be mentored. And I remember we came out, we had to come out earlier to meet everyone for that meeting. And that was great too, to meet the other folks that were participating in the Midwest Conference. It became, and to meet, the other folks on the board. So it was really meaningful to me to come out to the Midwest Conference. And after the band performed, I've been to almost every Midwest Conference. And though even if I haven't played, I come out and I just love the energy there. And then 2 years ago, my big band came back and played the Midwest Conference. And that was incredible. My students were so excited. I think the thing is, for band directors that may be considering bringing their band to Midwest, the thing that's incredible is preparing for that. You prepare so much for the recording, you submit the recording, takes so much hard work. Then when you find out you get in, that's when it all begins, because then you really, really want to start preparing so that you can have a good showcase and the students can feel good, and the director can feel good, and the administration can feel good. And again, when I came out this year, it was the same. 2 years ago, it was the same experience. It was just a beautiful time for myself, beautiful time for the students, and it's something that they'll never forget. They bring it up all the time. So very, very special moment in my life.
Well, thank you for all your kind words. It's just, it just is a further display of your heartfelt sincerity about being an educator and being a musician. And the thing that I would ask at this point, since we're almost at the end of the interview, is we would love to have you play something for us.
Sure.
Would you mind sharing something?
Sure.
Thank you, Terell. That's incredible. This has been wonderful, man. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all you do and who you are, and you've touched so many lives, and I'm glad I was able to be touched by your spirit and soul. Thank you.
Thank you, Terell. To our viewers, thanks for watching. We hope you gained some valuable insights from the interview. Please view other interviews in the series to learn more about the interviewees and their contributions to music education.